DHS is monitoring all that information. They're checking the electronic systems. They're making sure there's no malware. They're checking to see if a foreign actor infiltrated the system. That is not happening. So their plan was to use mail-in the entire time. How do you get people to do mail-in, to make it look like everyone is doing mail-in? Well, you need some type of pandemic. You need an event to push your agenda. Bring on the pandemic. It had nothing to do with anything except the elections. Yes, they were also trying to bring in other agendas like vaccines and things like that, which is just a side note to all of this, and it would push their 16-year plan forward. But their main objective was to get Biden in there, because if Biden was in there or any other candidate was in there, they could move forward with their plan. So to do this, they created this pandemic. They brought it to the United States, and this way they can push mail-in voting. But Trump countered all of this by opening up the country. They thought he was going to keep it closed. They thought they would scare everyone enough and they would push Trump to keeping the entire country closed. But it did not work. And now they had to continue with their plan. They couldn't stop because it was already laid out. But there's one problem with their plan. They were hoping the Supreme Court would be on their side. They were hoping that RBG would be there, because any ruling that went to the Supreme Court, it would be knocked down and Trump would not win. Now, like I said before, my other report, what was the deep state trying to do? They were trying to keep RBG alive. We'll be getting to that in just a moment. But we can see that the deep state players, they're trying to hide their cheating. Now, out in Detroit, we see that they were trying to put boards on the window so nobody could look in to see how the counts were being done. So they were keeping people back. They weren't transparent whatsoever. And this is how you cheat. Now, think about this. At 4 a.m., we had a Wisconsin dump of 65,000 votes, 100% for Biden. At 4 a.m., we had Michigan, 138,499 votes, 100% for Biden. Now let's talk about investing. Now, what's going on with these markets? Right now, they're all over the place, and no one knows what's happening. Will they grow or come crashing down? One thing for sure, gold has kept people safe for thousands of years through wars, disaster, and financial troubles. That's why Noble Gold is inviting you to get safe with gold this time. They're gifting a solid 24-karat American Gold Eagle coin in a spectacular display case with every qualifying IRA 401k started before the end of November. Gold has been looking after people for thousands of years, and this time it's no different. It's the only proven way of keeping hold of the value of your retirement fund, whatever happens out there. No call centers, no sales pitch, straight through to the experts who'll give you your option. Noble Gold when it really matters. So go to noblegoldinvestments.com and get this special coin offer, but don't hang around. Or call 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Let's talk about being prepared. With the elections only weeks away, we all know we need to be prepared for the worst. Civil unrest is getting so ugly in spots it could bring the entire system to its knees. We know what the deep state's going to do. We know that they're going to be pushing the second wave of COVID-19. Grocery stores and food manufacturers are already preparing themselves for nationwide panic. Will you be ready? Don't wait until it's too late. Remember the toilet paper shortage? I urge you to visit preparewithx22.com and build your emergency food supply today. And you need to be prepared for any scenario. And right now, you can save $100 off a full 4-week supply of the delicious, nutritious meals that give you a life-saving 2,000 calories a day. And we all know we like to procrastinate. But what happens when you procrastinate? You're not prepared. And this is why you need to be prepared, because we don't know what's going to happen. So go to preparewithx22.com. That is preparewithx22.com. Arizona poll workers forcing voters to use Sharpies, thereby invalidated their ballots because the Sharpies bleed through and the scanners can't pick them up. Now, I remember when I was in school, you had to use a number 2 pencil. You couldn't use a marker because the scanners are very specific on what they pick up. You know these individuals were trained in that. You know they knew that a ballpoint pen was the only option. Actually, when I went to vote, they were handing out ballpoint pens. That's it. That's all you were allowed to use. And people are reporting that certain people got Sharpies, Other people did not get Sharpies. So Trump, during this entire time, he was leading in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. They saw that he was going to win, so they had to stop counting. What happened next? Ballots started to appear, and they magically helped only one candidate, Biden, because they had to make up the difference. So when you take a step back, everything is only going in one direction. The media bias only goes in one direction. Polling errors only go in one direction. Found votes only go in one direction. Voter fraud and tampering only go in one direction. And that is not in the direction of Trump. It's in the direction of Biden. And we know that this was their plan. But remember, this is a gigantic sting operation. Trump, the Patriots, they knew the playbook from the beginning. We've known for a very long time. And Trump has been studying the deep state, been studying their tactics, and so have we for a very long time. What does the deep state like to do to try to push legislation, try to push certain laws? They create events. They create a crisis. And they try to push whatever they need through. What is Trump doing right now? He's using their tactics against them. He's creating an electoral crisis. Look how bad the situation is. It is awful. Look at the fraud that's going on. How can we stop this? Is there something that we can use to stop all of this? Can we pass legislation to stop this chaos right now? Because we never want this to happen again. And this is what it's all about. You need to change the system so the deep state can't cheat in the future. If Trump just won and that was it, he just won and there was no problems, the election process would not be changed. It would stay the same. And when he came to the end of his second term, what would the deep state do? Yes, there's still those individuals out there. They never disappear. What would they try to do? They would try to steal the election again. He knew this time. He knew that they knew how he worked it last time. He allowed them to go through with their plan. He needed the crisis. He needed the chaos. He needed the uncertainty. And this will affect not just Republicans, but Democrats and everyone else. Because nobody ever wants this to happen again. Everyone wants a fair election. Everyone wants everything accounted for. I mean, except for the deep state and the corrupt politicians, of course. And this is why he's been doing it. This is what he tweeted out. We have claimed for electoral vote purposes the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia, and the state of North Carolina, each one of which has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim that state of Michigan, if in fact there was a large number of secretly dumped ballots, has been widely reported. And then he continued, any vote that came in after Election Day will not be counted. Remember, it's Election Day, it's not election week. Now, what's very interesting is that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which gave a 3-day extension to count votes, including ballots with no postmarks, has overruled the lower court and will not allow Republicans to observe the vote count in Philly. Why would the Pennsylvania Democrats sue to stop GOP poll observers from monitoring the ballot counting in Philadelphia if they have nothing to hide? Does that make any sense whatsoever? Of course it does, if you're trying to hide the manipulation. Tom Fitton tweeted this out. It is not normal for multiple states or even one state to be counting presidential votes for days after an election. It is without precedent in modern American history, and it raises significant statutory and constitutional concerns. And Richard Grinnell tweeted this out. Joe Gloria, a Clark County election official, says he cannot guarantee there isn't fraud in Nevada voting, and he isn't allowing Trump team access to watch signature verification. We are concerned they are counting illegal ballots and not just legal votes. Yes, we want all votes counted, but the legal votes, the fake votes, the non-legal votes, those do not need to be counted. Only the legal votes. Now, everybody wants the Department of Justice to step in, but because of regulations, they have to wait 10 days after the election to step in, and this is what Emerald Robinson tweeted out. Hearing from a White House source, the Justice Department is claiming that regulations require them to wait 10 days before intervening in the election, which actually is okay. I do believe that Trump and the Patriots, they want this to play out. Don Jr. kind of sums up the whole thing, which means they knew exactly what was going on. You didn't see all these games, statistical impossibilities, a magic ballot in 2016 because the Democrats figured they had it in the bag and wouldn't have to break out all the stops. What they did this time, they learned from the 2016 election. They understood what Trump was going to do. Trump allowed them to move forward with their plan. He always knew. He knew exactly what they were planning, and they created a sting operation. Everything was set in motion. He told everyone that this was going to happen. But remember, when you tell people, people don't believe. You must show them because seeing is believing. It's almost like if you tell a child, listen, see that flame right there? That's hot. Don't touch it. And you say, hey, don't touch that. It's hot. What does the child do? Well, they have to touch the flame. They get burnt. At that point, they understand, yes, fire is hot. You just can't tell them. They have to experience it. Now they know. When you tell people there's an election fraud, that they're trying to steal the election, it just goes over their head. They don't care. You actually have to see it. Just like you saw censorship. Just like you saw the dictators in the different states, governors. You saw the riots and how the police were told to stand down. You had to experience all this. Well, now we're experiencing election fraud. How a deep state, how foreign influences, how they go about stealing an election. This has been going on for a very long time. It's just been hidden behind the scenes. No one was able to see it. Trump right now is bringing it out into the forefront, out of the shadows, out of the dark, into the light, so everyone can see us. This is what he's been doing his entire 4-year term. He's been bringing the corruption out into the light. And you just can't dump everything at once. Can you imagine if he came out the first day that he won election in 2016 and said, listen, by the way, Joe Biden's corrupt. Here's the laptop. By the way, here's election fraud. Here's this. Here. No one would pay attention. It's too much. You need to show, and people have to experience it while it's happening. That's when you understand. This is what the deep state did with mass shooting. This is what they did with 9/11. They create an emotional response to push their agenda forward. So Trump is doing the same exact thing. He's creating an emotional response. We have a problem here. We have a crisis. We're going to need to solve this, not at this moment, but later on. Because at this moment, we have to show the fraud. We have to show what they're actually trying to do. And if you look, and we said this in the beginning, almost every single tweet that Trump is putting out there about mail-in votes, about fraud, they have been censoring. And he's been telling us about mail-in voting since, what, May? April? We know we can go back further than that, but he's been tweeting out a lot about this. Now, think about how desperate the deep state is. They are cheating so everyone can see. They believe they're in control. The mainstream media will push this through. Don't worry, we got this. But what's happening is they're dumping a massive amount of ballots. It doesn't make sense to people. You don't have ballots come in, 200, 300, 400,000, and they're all for one candidate. Remember, Trump is going to use this when he brings them to court. Yes, he's doing the first round, and some he's winning, some he's losing. That is to be expected. But remember, there's going to be evidence that's going to be produced. Now, War Clandestine tweeted this out, which kind of sums everything up. And let me just read the tweet here. It's a thread. So let me read. Number one, every patriot needs to read this. After patience and observation, I deduce how this phase of the plan is being executed and, more importantly, why it is being done this way. The sheep are meant to see something, and we are maximizing eyes on the situation, and I'll prove it. Notice Fox declared Arizona for Biden very early, while CNN, MSNBC have Arizona neutral. Both echo chambers are feeling fear to their base, making them glued to the situation. Fear porn, maximizing eyes on. This is not an accident. The sheep are about to be shown something big. I know it's been painful, but this delay only benefits MAGA. It neutralizes the organized riots on standby where Trump is going to be declared the winner. It introduces an avenue to attack voter fraud and secure further elections while we have the maximum eyes on from both sides of the aisle. It exposes the mainstream media outlets for calling states too early in an attempt to influence public perception via disinformation, therefore subverting an election coup d'etat. It grants the NSA, U.S. military, the authority and optics to reveal foreign interference. It will be worth the wait. Massive happenings are going to occur in the coming days, weeks. We need to make sure that the normies see all of it. Keep them engaged. That's what this operation is about. Waking up normies and discrediting our number one enemy, the mainstream media. What is soon to unfold will do both simultaneously. Trump will squeak this victory out by a tiny margin. The Dems will 180, foaming at the mouth, call for a recount and accuse Trump of cheating again. Votes will need to be validated. Trump will end up winning by a large margin, and we're going to get the Dems to ask for it. The lib sheet won't be able to ignore it because they're expecting the recount to destroy Trump, but in the end, it will only benefit him, just like Mueller. This is how we infiltrate liberal echo chambers and get them to see what we want them to see. Laser pointer effect. Given the way this is transpiring and how this limbo benefits Trump, I am confident that we are in control. This is part of the plan. Remain vigilant. Do not falter. Stick to the mission. Don't allow the unknown to consume you. Hold the line and let the plan unfold. And I completely agree. And yes, this is holding the riots off. But as soon as the results are in and there's a recount, I do believe the deep state is going to be moving forward with this. Now, remember, we talked yesterday about how DHS created the ballots and most likely put a watermark on the ballots. Now, what's very interesting coming out of California from Alex Padilla, the Office of Voting Systems Technology Assessment, we can confirm now that, yes, there is a watermark on the ballots. And this says, pursuant to Elections Code 13002 and the California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 20215, 20218, 20280, the Secretary of State's office has selected a design and color combination to use in the November 3rd, 2020 general election. The watermark for the November 3rd, 2020 general election is the CA poppy. The tint for the background and watermark is red, PMS 192. The watermark and tint must appear on the ballot itself, not only on the stub. So there is a watermark. And I do believe that DHS put it on there. It might be another watermark, which has the state and the federal watermark on there. But I do believe that you need some type of infrared light to see it. And maybe this is why Q has been telling us, and another reason for it, rig for red. Also, if we go back to post 765, Q has also told us to watch the water. Does that mean watch the watermark? Now, that's very interesting. I do believe that Trump, he's exposing voter fraud. He's also going to introduce voter ID because he created the crisis to do this. Kevin Sorbo tweeted this out. Bring back voter ID. If you need one to drive, buy alcohol, fly a plane, adopt a pet, buy tobacco products, open or access your bank account, then you should need one to vote. How do you stop all of this? You use voter ID. So let's go back to post 2855. It says, welcome to the Democratic Party. They will stop at nothing to regain power. Time to adopt voter ID law. Now, this was back February 21st, 2019. So let's think logically about this. If you know the playbook, why allow the deep state to proceed? How do you wake the public up? Crisis. How do you introduce voter ID with the crisis? Is this about the election or about the future of the country? Sometimes the people must see it to believe it. Change is not always easy. Change is uncomfortable. Sometimes you must take 2 steps back to move 3 steps forward. And that's what we've always experienced from the very, very beginning. And Martin Geddes tweeted this out. If they declare a win, it triggers the audit announcement and their downfall for insurrection. If they don't declare a win but won't concede, then they expose themselves as running an insurrection. Either way, the insurrection is exposed and ended. Goodbye, D Party. Last election. So, where's all this most likely going to end up? Supreme Court. This brings me back to the beginning when we talked about RBG. The deep state, their plan has always been in motion. They couldn't stop it. But their plan included RBG. Remember, she was a Supreme Court justice. She wasn't supposed to die. They were supposed to keep her alive long enough. So when Trump brought this to the Supreme Court, he couldn't win. They couldn't do it. This is why Q was letting us know the information about RBG, that she was barely hanging on this entire time. Post 2653. Who are the doctors currently treating RBG? What other political former current senior political heads are they affiliated with? What off-market drugs are being provided to RBG in order to sustain minimum daily function? What is the real medical diagnosis of RBG? Who is managing her care? Who is really managing her care? The clock is ticking. Panic in D.C. Basically, they were keeping her barely alive. And it didn't work. She passed, and the deep state couldn't alter their plan. The course was already set. All they could do is try to block Amy Coney Barrett. They never thought Trump would be able to push this through. Why? Was he able to push this through? It goes back to the beginning. The Senate was the target, not the House, the Senate. Look how much the Senate has done. It has worked in the Patriots' favor. It was planned this way from the beginning. And their plan has now gone down the tubes. And what's very interesting is that Paul Sperry tweeted this out. Funny how CNN has suddenly stopped its COVID drumbeat, isn't it? They even taken down their death toll tumbler. Aren't we still in the middle of a supposed national health care emergency? CNN, don't you care anymore? CNN, what a bunch of phonies. What did Trump say? I think he said that this was going to disappear. Just like that. What did Q say? Oh, this was going to disappear plus 1 day after the election. What's happening right now? They don't care about COVID anymore. They're going to take all those death toll numbers down. They're not going to report on it. You know why? They don't need it. As we move forward, day after day, people will just forget about it. It won't be mentioned on the mainstream media. The fear will be gone. You know why? They're moving on to their next mission. And I just wanted to read this from Joe M., who's on Parler. Yes, he's been kicked off of Twitter many, many times, but this is what Joe M. put out there. Surprised that some followed the miracle of the plan for 3 years and marveled at its sophistication, but for the first time are willing to forget everything we have learned about the art of war. Remember the midterms? We couldn't understand why he lost the House. Then it all made sense. We kept the Senate because we needed the Senate. We lost the House because we didn't want the House. We want them to expose their crimes through impeachment and many other frauds like withholding pandemic relief, etc. What happened yesterday is as much part of the plan as everything else. It has been flawlessly executed, and we have lured the enemy countless times into traps when they thought we were losing. Now is no different. You will soon see why this had to happen. Don't ruin these few days ahead for yourself with worry. Remember what you have learned about Trump and Q. They simply cannot lose no matter how it looks. Military grade, keep enjoying the show. Then we have Trump tweeting this out. All of the recent Biden claim states will be legally challenged by us for voter fraud and state election fraud. plenty of proof. Just check out the media. We will win. That's in all caps. America first. Now, what's very interesting is we know the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the invisible enemy, they're not just going to say, okay, we give, you got us on voter fraud. They're going to try to stop this. They've been censoring almost everyone now, putting labels on them, banning them, blocking their accounts. And now there is a call to ban Trump's Twitter account. This is from David Cicilline. And this is what this individual tweeted. Right now, and by the way, this is the U.S. House candidate RI1. Right now, the president Twitter account is posting lies and misinformation at breathtaking clip. It is a threat to our democracy and should be suspended until the votes are counted. Now, that is not the only individual who's asking for Trump's account to be brought down. We have others. This is from Kristen Clark, and it says, breaking. We're calling for Jack and Twitter to suspend the account of the president given multiple violations of Twitter's civic integrity policy that espouse disinformation regarding our elections. The flags placed on these posts do not go far enough. So they're already making the call to get rid of Trump's account. Were we told this? Yes, we were. I do believe when everything is said and done, they're going to have to either bring down social media or block everyone. And remember, back in post 2793, it said 0 day with brackets, countermeasures in place. Example, think emergency alert system. Think White House controlled new RT News website. Think White House controlled new video stream platform. Think here. Should this occur, immediate steps will be taken to classify each as a public utility, essential public services to gain appropriate government regulation control. Why do we make things public? Well, so first of all, people know about it, and hopefully they don't go through with the plan. Secondly, why do they make things public, like a public utility? Well, this gives the people the right to speak freely. Think about the phone system. Think about the electrical system. Think about gas that comes to your house. These are public utilities. Can you imagine if you were on a phone call and Verizon or Sprint said, hey, I don't like what you're saying. I'm cutting you off. Well, that would be unbelievable. But isn't that what social media is doing? I don't like what you say. I'm going to cut you off. If you make them a public utility, they can't do this. The Patriots, they knew for a very long time that this was coming. They allowed the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the mainstream media to do all of this. It's about exposing everything. And it seems that the emergency alert system is now on deck. They have begun making the call to ban Trump, which means if they bring him down, they're going to bring down everyone else because they need to control the narrative, which means the Patriots move to the next phase of the plan.